All right, Nancy, you want to take it away?
Sure. Yes, that's wonderful. A warm welcome to all of you for uh, putting ourselves on your schedule tonight to talk about the data center issue that is coming very quickly. Um, we will have a Montgomery County Data Center development summary by Carl. Then we will talk with Carolyn Taylor, who will present on what's at stake with and questions and answers regarding the data centers as a whole. And then we will have an action items presented with Kevin Walton. And this entire meeting is being presented by the uh, um, climate mobilization and Montgomery County's climate coalition. And I'll pass it to you, Carl. I also might give the meeting protocol to you so that you will know how it will work. Please stay muted unless you're speaking. The presentation is being recorded and being made available to you, to all registrants, probably by tomorrow. Introduce yourselves, put your name and where you live in the chat. Please put your questions in the chat during the presentation and Q&A sessions. Thank you. Carl?
Great. Thank you, Nancy. So I'd like to spend a couple minutes just giving you a quick summary of some things that have been going on in the last 6 months in the county. Many of you are probably aware of the data center development going on the legislation before the council, but just to make sure everybody understands where we are at the moment, I just want to quickly go through some points. So in terms of the Dickerson Data Center complex that you may have heard of. So in 2022, Terra Energy bought the old Pepco power plant in Dickerson, Maryland, along the Potomac River. Their intent has been to use the industrial zone portion of the property for data center development. Atmosphere LLC has an agreement with Terra to apply for a phase one proposal to build 5 hyperscale data centers on 110 acres of the site. This is all in the industrial zone land, which is about close to 300 acres altogether. Now, these 5 data centers are projected to consume 300 megawatts of electricity off the grid, and they're asking for a permit to use up to $2 million gallons per day of Potomac River water for cooling. Last week, the updated atmosphere application for their conditional use permit was accepted by the planning department intake office. It is being evaluated under the PD zoning land use code as a cable communications facility, since there are no existing zoning code that is specific for data centers. The planning department has forwarded the application to the County Office of Zoning Administrative Hearing, OZA, for a public hearing and review by a hearing examiner prior to his approval or rejection, with any additional modifications made by the examiner. This hearing is scheduled for September 10th. Now, in the interim, the planning board will also hold a public meeting on the application, which is expected to be scheduled sometime in late July or early August. The planning board will then review the application and provide input and advice to the OZA examiner prior to September 10th. So I wanted to quickly show you, and you'll see this again later in the presentation today. This is a bird's eye view of the old Pepco power plant. I don't know if you know Montgomery County layout pretty well, but this is along the Potomac River up north of White's Ferry and in Dickerson, Maryland, and it's not too far from Poolsville. So that's kind of the area we're dealing with. The browned area is the area that's industrial zoned, And then you see there's areas that are darker brown. That is agricultural reserve land that's part of the property. Back in January, when this was starting to heat up, a council bill was introduced, 2601, ZTA 2601, by Council President Fanny Gonzalez, Council Member Balcom, and Council Member Sales to the county. And this bill was intended to code a new zoning code for data center development. It's also going to restrict data centers to industrial zoned land and establish use standards for various parameters such as setback and minimize negative impacts on abutting properties and environmental sensitive areas such as wild wetlands, streams, and other areas, parks and recreational facilities, and pays attention to whether any of the development will disproportionately affect overburdened and underserved communities. Additional amendments have been proposed by Councilmember Balcom in March, and they're gonna cover the requirements in terms of the generation and/or procurement of carbon-free energy, a fuel use plan and strict emissions on backup generators, and a water use plan and proposed cooling systems to minimize water usage. The Climate Coalition submitted comments yesterday to Councilmember Balcom to propose strengthening these amendments, plus recommending new amendments to address gaps in the guardrails needed to protect the health of county residents and our environment. We also called for a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis for each data center development project prior to approval. Let me make clear that this ZTA 26 is just not focused on any one which is in the permitting process, but any future data development as well, data center development. The Council Planning and Housing Parks Committee will have a meeting in June, early June, not scheduled yet, to discuss ZTA 2601, a working session, and vote on whether to recommend the bill for full council deliberation and subsequent vote. This committee may hold more than one work session, by the way. However, we think that there are many issues that are not well understood or sufficiently addressed in the ZTA. More time is thus needed to gather this information before any regulation should be approved that allow hyperscale data centers in Montgomery County. And the last thing I want to cover is two bills have been proposed for a moratorium on data center development. One is for 6 months, introduced by Councilmember Glass, and one is for 2 years, introduced by Councilmember Giwando and Mink. A combined council public hearing is scheduled for June 16th at 1:30 p.m. You can now sign up to testify on both of these bills, and we'll provide more details later. So I'm going to turn it over to Caroline to dig deeper into these points and the issues surrounding why we are concerned with data center development in the county.
Thanks, Carl. And I wanted to thank TCM and the coalition and everyone that helped to make this evening possible, but especially to those who've taken time out of their evening to learn more. Now you're going to have to strap yourselves in because we got a lot of information to go through. I'm going to take myself off camera here so you can concentrate on the slideshow. So hang on, here we go. So we're going to do an overview, look at general concerns, look at the specifics of the Dickerson site, and then we'll move on to the pending county legislation. Next slide, please. All right, what's driving this nationwide proliferation of data centers? This is AI, generative computing or storage. Cornell. And by the way, I wanted to let you know, the slide deck is going to be made available. All of these links will be available to you when we share the slide deck with you. Cornell study indicates that by 2030, we're looking at 24 to 44 million metric tons of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere due to the emissions related to this industry. we're looking at anywhere from 731 to 1,125,000,000 cubic meters of water per year for this industry. And these are projections. Those are equal to the amount of water usage of 6 to 10 million Americans. Next slide. So on to massive water use. So data centers are currently one of the top water consuming industries. A single large data center can use up to 5 million gallons per day. That water generally is potable, and I want to pause and make a point because I think we've been distinguishing between potable water and direct from the resource water. For our purposes, our discussion, all the water is potable because the water that's being drawn from the Potomac River is our potable water once WSSC is done with it. So the potable water that's used for the evaporative cooling systems loses quite a bit of the water, and we'll hit a specific number on that when we discuss the Dickerson facility. There's also emerging information about how much water is used during years of construction, which sometimes takes years, especially when there's phases of construction. There's a lot of use for dust suppression, et cetera. And of course, there's potential impact on local communities that are using groundwater wells due to any chemical leachates and other activity on the ground surface. Next slide. This just out. I don't know if anyone saw this video showing the water from people's groundwater wells in Morgan County, Georgia. This is a pretty stunning image and conversation around water that is no longer potable due to data center use there. And the owners of the properties there have to actually have their water tanked in. Now they're unable to use their water sources there. Next slide. And a new study finds that data centers are actually creating heat islands, raising temperature as much as 16 degrees Fahrenheit proximate to their location, and currently making ambient temperature hotter for more than 340 million people. Next slide. And noise, this is another emerging aspect of this unique industry. Of course, the county has a noise ordinance. We have suggested or asked, and perhaps we should demand, that the county update its noise ordinance to account for the, again, unique impacts and types of sounds and vibrations that are emitted from these facilities. Sometimes felt, certainly infrasound as far as 5 miles away. Emerging science on infrasound indicates that it is causing human health impacts, and certainly we would just broadly say biological impacts, and that includes wildlife, et cetera. Next slide. So back to this image again that Carl showed earlier. This is the Dickerson site. The owner of the property, Terra Energy, proposes that 100 with this sale of the 110 acres to Atmosphere, that will be occupied with the 5 data center complex, that there will be a large grid battery storage facility also on the remaining industrial area, and there will be potential future phases of what we're understanding would be additional data center development. The property owner has been working to put the balance of the property, which is over 400 acres of agriculturally zoned agricultural reserve property, into various easements. And that's an ongoing process here locally with the local attorney. Next slide. So this again talks about the Pepco power plant, former power plant. SCA, that's Sugarloaf Citizens Association and Montgomery Countryside Alliance, learned of this project back in 2022. And in the intervening days, months, and years, we have been working to urge the applicant, Terra, and now Atmosphere, to work to collaborate with stakeholders to ensure that we can mitigate any negative effects of the project And those conversations have gone on now, as I said, for over 2 years. Next slide. So there we go again, 5 data centers to start. It's actually 1.2 million square feet of data center building space. There's some additional buildings that will be there in terms of, we're talking about total of imperviousness there. The preliminary approval, and for those of you who've been part of this conversation in an earlier webinar, discussed that the planning board offered recommendations, and the Office of Zoning and Administrative hearings decided that they were going to give a preliminary sort of conceptual approval to the idea of data centers at that site, calling them cable communications facilities because there was no data center use in the zoning ordinance. We raised concerns at the time that this was not a cable communication facility, that the standards were inadequate to help to judge the effects of the development. Unfortunately, the OZA hearing examiner decided that they would go ahead and approve it conceptually in a sort of novel manner. And as you see here, the attorney for Terra decided that it would be good to ask that our concerns be stricken from the record. They were unsuccessful in that bid. Next slide. So we asked at the time, and we still asked, what the effect this data center complex will have on the treasured federal parkland, the C&O Canal. There are up to 5 million people who visit that site every year, and I think it's a legitimate issue that should be part of the conversation in terms of noise, et cetera, the effect on that national treasure. Next slide. So here are some of the concerns. I'm not saying that this is all of them, but we've mentioned water, fire risk, lack of formal regulatory framework, which they're working on, power, emissions, noise, vibration, and importantly, a lack of economic research, as Carl mentioned, cost-benefit analysis, and who's paying for the water and the power. Next slide. Atmosphere proposes, as we said, to use the Potomac River for their cooling needs. The Interstate Commission on the Potomac River Basin has established that the Potomac region will face water shortages as early as 2030. They are looking to build additional reservoirs to try to manage that advent. Additional planned reservoirs have not taken in the outside needs. We know now that 12% of the river is currently used by existing data centers in the summer months. We have asked, and we will continue to ask, who's looking at the cumulative impacts of all the data centers that will be putting straws either directly into the river or using the public water supplies that draw from the river. And thus far, the answer to that has been, especially from the MDE, Maryland Department of Environment, a great outstretching of hands saying, not us. So we are really interested in making sure that we're looking comprehensively, cumulatively, of what the impact on the river is. The river supplies water for 6 million Washington area residents. Next slide. And as you all have been following, even though we have this respite right now of having some rain, we are at the driest point in 131 years. If you look at this map, I don't know if somebody has a cursor. Will my cursor work? Oh, look at that. Yes, Montgomery County is here. So you can see that in the drought map. I'm sure that most of you have been feeling the impacts of not just the drought, but the corresponding heat that we've had. And this is something, the climate change effect on our water resources is something that should be taken into account with these large water users. Next slide. So the permit that has been sent to the MDE we've asked to be part of a public hearing, is up to 2 million gallons per day. We are told not to worry about that because they're going to only use that water to that extent when it's above 75 degrees. And I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, that means at the time of the year when the most peak use of water and the lowest level of the river, the most water will be drawn by this use. And by their own numbers, it looks like 67% of that water would be lost to evaporation through their cooling system processes. Next slide. So, bleach. So they have to use something to keep the water clean. They're going to be manufacturing and storing bleach on site at quantities which we do not know, through a process of storage, et cetera, which we do not know, and returning the water to the river, we trust fully neutralized, but we do not know. And I think I speak for my colleagues and perhaps a number of attendees that we actually need to know, and we need to have certainty that what is being put back into that river is not going to degrade its quality and affect the biological life in the river. Next slide. So it never goes without saying, because this is my topic, the Piedmont sole source aquifer, which supplies, it says at least 50% of the water in the area. Look, the agricultural reserve and the county's rural transition areas are all served by groundwater wells. That is the only economically viable source of water that we have. And it is a unique geology. It is a crystalline geology that is prone to contamination. It is also subject to more effects by climate change. So things that happen above the ground and things that happen below the ground in the aquifer area can have a significant impact on its quality, quantity, and longevity. Next slide. Fire risk. And I know that the applicant has told us that they are diligent about looking into fire risk and making sure that they have adequate facilities, but it is indeed something that has emerged as a risk for this industry. And one that there are some concerns that community members have in terms of the one fire rescue center, which is the Upper Montgomery County Fire Department, which is an all-volunteer fire department, whether it's adequate to manage the needs of not only the data centers, but also the battery storage facilities and all the other industrial needs of that area. Next slide. So transparency. Okay. Look, we were rebuffed at the first end of this, the first application from Terra Energy in terms of fully understanding the implications of this use at that site. We had no site plans. We did not have a true evaluation of adequate public facilities. We did not have an idea of how much energy or water would be used. Some of those things are being made available now, but as I said, there are cumulative impacts, there are effects on ratepayers that really beg additional information prior to permitting this facility, prior to finally enacting ZTA 2601. Next slide. So as to power needs, and all of this, by the way, is under the umbrella of the climate change goals of this county, which are ambitious but necessary. As you may know, that we have set a goal of carbon neutral by 2035. And many are legitimately concerned that without real protections and real requirements for renewable generation, energy generation for this use, that we will have taken those goals and thrown them right out the window. The project that we know now will not produce its own energy. It's going to use from the PJM grid, which relies heavily on coal power production. There's only 8% renewable energy from the provider First Energy that will be supplying the energy for this project. And as we said, phase one is actually 360 megawatts, and you can see the equivalency of usage for homes and cars. Phase two, which remains to be seen, but we understand it's a potential, is 275 megawatts, and there's your equivalency in homes and cars. So the full build out of this project would triple the county's carbon emissions. PJM, the grid operator, the people that are responsible for how we get, how reliable our power is, has already stated that we will have rolling brown and blackouts due to the growing power needs, largely of this industry, by as early as 2027. Next slide. And yet, even before 2027, we understand that PJM just got an emergency approval from the federal government to curtail data centers' power during hot weather when there's great draw on power. Where are they going to get the power to run their data centers? Well, they have gotten permission to use their backup generation, and their backup generation is diesel generators for the most part. And in fact, the Dickerson facility intends to have industrial diesel generators, 149 for the operations of the data centers, and an additional number for the operation of their water plant. Next slide. And who pays? Residential electrical bills, as you know, have, well, they've gone through the roof. And they're projected to go further the roof over the next 10 years, largely accounting for a lot of the data center growth in Virginia. We need more economic data on the revenues that are ostensibly going to balance this burden. 50% of proposed data centers across the country have been canceled or delayed. Power companies still much budget for power. In other words, the grid across the country isn't able to manage the power needs of this industry. And the idea that somehow we're going to play with its needs by allowing them to use diesel generation in times when it's either too cold or too hot for the grid to support it. Well, I don't know about you, but that's pretty scary. Next slide. And here we hear from the Maryland People's Council that it's not a question. They have correlated the amount that ratepayers are paying more now is directly related to data centers. And largely right now, Virginia's data centers. And this is something that I think our decision makers, that we think our decision makers in the county need to look at carefully before they allow this industry to move forward here. Next slide. And so we've been talking about backup generators. Here's the number again. It's 149, I believe. So they'll cover about 120% of their power needs there in Dickerson. And of course, under Governor Moore, they removed any limit on the number of generators allowed for the industry. So there actually is no limit, and they can run 24/7 in an outage, and they will require monthly testing. Next. So here we are now with the zoning text amendment 2601, which will remedy the issue that we brought up like 2 years ago, that there is nothing in our zoning code allowing for data centers. So that is a good thing, that we would, if we're going to have this use, that we would actually provide for it in our zoning code and have appropriate standards by which to judge it. So the ZTA, however, is not yet amended yet to have appropriate safeguards for water, power use, emissions, noise protections. But we have, as I believe Carl mentioned, we have seen some proposed amendments, and we have provided comments. You all will be able to have a link to the comments that that the coalition has provided to Councilmember Balcom. She and her staff were the ones that worked hard to do the initial amendments, proposed amendments to the ZTA. Next slide. So again, the sort of topics that we covered in our recommendations include land use compatibility, health impacts, cost benefit analysis, water cooling systems, and an important update to the county's noise ordinance and monitoring requirements. Next slide. And the subject areas where we have said that they need amendments: energy, land use, water, noise, vibration, transparency and accountability, No non-disclosure agreements under that one. Support of neighborhood communities. Next slide. So this is important because I think when we discuss this issue, many people, and I understand this, have said, well, shoot, there's one data center complex, and that's off in that far northwestern area, yep, over there in Dickerson. So what's that got to do with me? Well, a couple things. One is that one data center complex, as we've been discussing, can affect your cost of your energy. It can affect the reliability of the grid cumulatively with others. It can affect the Potomac River. But moreover, because this use is proposed in every industrial zone, that is light industrial, medium industrial, and heavy industrial, why there's places all over the county where it can go. Let's look at some maps. How about that? We're going to look at a chart first. Next slide. All right, this chart, and I remind you, you'll be able to look at these at your leisure after they're provided to you. But this breaks down each of the areas where there are these industrial zones and the total amount of acreage for each of these. We're going to look at a series of maps, and again, I'm going to go through them relatively quickly. And I want to thank Karen Metchis for really working hard to produce these maps with some help from the folks at the Montgomery County Planning. Next slide. So here we go. Travilla Quarry area in Potomac, Rockville, you've got 275 acres. Next. Here in Bethesda, there's 21 acres from clustered areas of industrial there. Next. Dickerson, as you know, we've discussed 300 acres. And next slide. In Boyd's, you got 13 and 14 acres there, and Germantown, 60 and 18 acre parcels there. Next slide. Durwood, 60 and 130 acres. Gaithersburg, 90 acres. Rockville, 560 acres. Next slide. North Bethesda, 24, and Kensington, 12, and North Chevy Chase, 85 acres. Next. Fairland, 20 acres. Burtonsville, 10 acres. Next slide. Rockville, 70 acres. North Bethesda, Garrett Park, 60 and 50 acre cluster. Next slide. Montgomery Village, 150 acres. Gaithersburg, 145 and 260 acre clusters. Next slide. I think that may be it. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to take some questions. I'm going to bring myself back on camera. I apologize for the speed with which I flew through that, but here we are. All right. So I'm open to questions, and I want you to know if I'm not able to answer them or we don't get to you, I will be happy to answer them after the meeting, stay a little longer, or anytime thereafter, you'll be able to contact me.
So, Caroline, there were a lot of comments early on about why aren't we just banning them?
Okay. So I hear you, brothers and sisters. The trajectory of this use, the complexion of the county's decision makers, and that includes the planning department, our council, and our county executive, make for a terrain in which we are realists and we understand that this is going to happen. I have my own personal thoughts on whether this is a net positive, but I want you to know that this coalition, this Sierra Club, Montgomery Countryside Alliance, Sugarloaf Citizens Association are dogged in making sure that this use will not move forward without appropriate safeguards and centering of the citizens of this county, our health, our economic well-being. So please understand that we are working very hard to make this, I'm not even going to say least bad, to have our decision makers understand that the reality is, and increasingly every day, that this unique industry will have far-reaching impacts for us, and we hear you, but we are also realists, and we've asked for moratoriums. We support the moratoriums, within which time it could be determined that this is a non-starter for the county. It could be determined that if we're looking hard at economics and science, but we need that time. I hope that answers your concerns on this. And believe me when I tell you, this has kept me awake now for over 2 years on occasion because it is a huge deal and with far-reaching impacts.
All right, there's another question about how's the WSSC weighed in about the water use?
So WSSC was part of the Interstate Commission for the Potomac River Basin's discussions via webinar on data centers that took place several months ago. They and other water suppliers indicated that there are concerns in terms of the reliability of the water resource, but they needed more information. And I want to remind you, WSSC is in the business of selling water. So historically, I have found them to be less concerned about issues like this. But I will tell you that I heard more concern from WSSC and Interstate Commission on the Potomac River Basin than I have historically. Next.
So there's a couple of questions about data center sustainability. Are there any models for that? And why can't they just put solar panels on the roofs? And what
Sure.
would the value of that be for their energy?
So interestingly, we actually have someone who has come to us through Bethesda Green, who is a State Department fellow, who says she's going to help us look across the world and find if there are any models for, really true green data centers. I am interested to hear what the results of her study will be. It's another one of those questions that beg a pause to take some time to see if we can find that information. And then as to the question about why can't we just use solar, I asked early on with the Terra Energy people, I said, hey, where's the solar on this? The answer was they can't put solar on top of data centers because of something about the cooling and the amount of energy that they would be requiring for this would require over 1,000, I maybe even thousands of acres of solar to provide what they need. That said, I think rightly people have said if you're going to require this much energy, you need to bring new renewable energy generation to provide for it, not existing renewable generation, because in that case, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Right now, we have a climate change goal for our residents and businesses in this county. If we take all of that energy, that renewable energy, and apply it to this industry, where have we left the rest of us? So I guess my point is at site, there is not enough acreage to provide for solar. Should they have solar there anyway? Yes, yes, they should. They should have it over the parking. They should have it over whatever structures they can, but they have said they are not going to do that. Next question.
Let's see. There were
Also, Reardon Sullivan has his hand up whenever you see that.
right. So there was a question about the moratorium, the Juanda moratorium. That's what we're going to be talking about more in detail after we finish with this section. So, all right, we're going to take a couple of questions from people with hands up, and then we're going to go to our last section about what you can do. But we're going to stay online. So if people want to after 8:30, so if people want to stay on and they have more questions, want to have more discussion, we're definitely going to be here for that. So, all right, Reardon, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and I think you can then do that.
Thank you so much for putting this together and allowing open conversation about this interesting topic. A little background, I've actually been a data center designer for about 30 years. I actually did the Fairland Data Center and actually worked with Atlantic Online in Silver Spring. And I guess one of my questions, I have not seen the newest ZTA and or the guidelines in it. One of the things that having done data center design, I know that they don't have to all be water cooled. Actually, if you do a flyover over Ashburn, there's no water near Ashburn. They're all done with air-cooled water chillers by Daikin, Train, or Carrier. The idea of, so I think when you're putting together requirements, that might be something that we want to look at. You mentioned about using the generators during peak time. That's actually not new. There used to be something called peak shaving. And whenever the power company, having designed these systems, when Pepco was reaching its peak, they would send like a little signal to large energy users, such as data centers, and then they would turn on their generators. Regarding the noise from the generators, there's actually different sound classifications for the generator, not only the cooling fans, but the silencers or the exhaust systems. And I would urge people to look up the definition of a hospital grade generator, because generators are used all the time in hospitals where they have to be, reasonably cool or reasonably quiet. Um, yeah, so I think we have opportunity. I think Carolyn's right. It's going to happen. The question is, how do you make it um, so it's not so onerous, and are reasonable guardrails on bringing this to the county, making it efficient, um, and basically protecting the users from you know uh, out of control development. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Reed.
Yeah, thank you for that. I do want to say that with regard to sound, there's, diesel generator sound, but there's also the emerging science on infrasound, and I think we need to pay close attention to that. But thank you for that.
Okay, I'm just going to go to Jacqueline, and then we're going to have to go to the next section. And Bishop, we'll get to your question after this next section if you stay around. Okay, Jacqueline, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, thank you for putting this together. Also with the infrasound, this wasn't my question, but I just wanted to add, it's not just the sound, it's also the vibration, and that's going to affect the critters. So I also have a home about 60, 70 miles further down the river in Charles County, where they are trying to put in a data center at a little spot on the map called Newburgh. It's called the Morgantown Generating Station. So a lot of people confuse it with West Virginia. I just wanted to flag that if this data center goes in, which right now it's anybody's guess, the county wants money, just like every county wants money. It's going to be burning natural gas. They're going to try to run a spike off the gas line that runs from Western Charles County out to the LNG plant at Cove Point. So if there are any ways that we can work together to try to get Charles in line with Montgomery, please let me know. That would just be such a huge help. And
Yeah, I so appreciate that. And I think we do need to join together on this issue. The jurisdictional boundaries are meaningless on this. This is impact that will be felt across county and in state lines. So I would be very happy if you wanted to, I'll let people know my email address here shortly, or they can find it on our website, and I'd be happy to chat with you about that. So thank you so much. All
yeah,
right,
because
sorry.
there are commercial fishing concerns. So for all of you on this call who enjoy your oysters, crabs, and striped bass, you got to pay attention.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up too. I didn't mention it, and I want to get to Kevin, but there are now emerging information about the impact of the vibration and infrasound on livestock, poultry and livestock. So that's something that I think needs to be taken into account as well. Kevin, on to you.
All right, thank you. And like I said, we'll take more questions after this last section, but we really want to get to what everybody here can do to help influence what's going on in the county.
Wait a minute.
So, Carl, yeah, if you could just share the slides.
Hold on. I'm going to find it. Just a second. Let me get out of here first. Okay. Wait a second. There.
No,
All right. Just a minute. You can't see it at all. Okay.
No.
Hold on a second. All right. Just a second.
Need to, yep, one back. Great, great. And if you could just expand that.
Yep.
All right. So, as a number of people have mentioned, um, there are a couple of council members, actually three council members, who have put forth bills to have a moratorium. Now, some people on this webinar may have been at our previous webinar, and where we were advocating for a moratorium. So we're having an action alert now, a new action alert, because actually the landscape has changed. So now we actually have bills that are going to be presented at council requiring a moratorium. One was put forward by Evan Glass for a 6-month moratorium, and the second one was put forth by Will Jawando and Kristen Mink for a 2-year moratorium. And as you heard from Caroline, the county really needs more time to develop detailed regulations about how data centers should be developed if they're developed in the county, and to do a cost benefit analysis. Really, is there value to us in the county? And if there's a net negative, well, then we shouldn't go forward. So this action alert will reach out to your council members, asking them to support the moratorium. So we have 3 council members right now that are supporting a moratorium. We need 4 more for them to request the council president to bring it up for vote. If you have a majority of the council requesting for a vote, then it has to come to a vote. Because they're expedited bills, we need 7 council members to vote in favor. So the hearing, so we really need everybody to share this action alert, to use it. People haven't used it before. It's really very simple. There's information there about what the issues are. The letter is pretty much written and about the major issues, why we need a moratorium. We really would like you to personalize these emails, change the subject heading, change some of the content, because and really make it personal to you. I mean, there's been a lot of opinions voiced in the chat at this meeting, and which is great. And so you should share your personal perspective. If you think they should be banned, well, go ahead and do that. If you think they need to be really regulated to avoid any environmental harm, you should say that. So please, what we're going to do is we're going to share these slides, and we share these links in an email tomorrow. But maybe, I don't know if Lisa, if you can put the Action Network link in the chat, that would be great too. So that's the first thing. It's the easiest thing to do. It's really quick, and it has an impact because we've been at meetings with the council full council meetings where they've commented about how many emails they've gotten on a particular topic. So they do notice. The second thing that, with a little bit bigger lift, is that these moratorium bills are going to have a public hearing on June 16th. And you can register to testify in person or online. These are the links to testify for each of the bills. And you can come in person, which is great. You'll get 3 minutes to speak, or you can just do it online from your relaxing home, and speak out about what you think is important. Again, we'll be giving you links for on information from the Climate Coalition about what are the issues, what are we concerned about. Of course, we want you to speak from the heart and let the council members know why this is so important. And then also you can submit written testimony. If you don't want to testify, you can just submit a document with however long or short you want it to be, about why you think the moratoriums are important. So again, these are the 2 easiest, simplest things: the action alert, we really want to get out as many emails to our council members as possible, letting them know that these bills are really important and we really need the time, either 6 months, 2 years, or something in between, to have the time to fully evaluate. There are so many issues that are not being addressed in the current council bill. All right, Carl, the next slide. So these two issues are longer term. So you heard it, the planning board is going to be reviewing the atmosphere data center application. It's really sort of like a conversation between the planning board and atmosphere, where the planning board is going to ask them questions, and there'll be more details than what's in the application. This is it's not a public hearing, but it's publicly available. And it should be really worth watching to understand where the planning board is coming from, what they think the issues are with the application. So this is the link for that. It's not, you can't, this link will take you to where you'll be able to connect to the live meeting. The live meeting is not available yet, but this is the link that will take you to that place. So that's June 2nd. And then there is, in fact, a planning board public hearing where you'll be able to speak out to the planning board, who has to review this application, about what you think about data centers, what you think the issues are, what you think they need to address, what's required to go forward if they go forward. That's not been scheduled yet. It's going to happen in late July, early August. We will be sharing with you, all the people registered at this meeting, these reminders about these meetings as they become available. But lastly, I want to emphasize, share this with your networks, with your neighbors, with any community groups you're in. We need to raise our voice. That's the power we have over our elected officials. We need to let them know what we think. So actually, Carl, could you go back one slide? So again, it's our voice. We need to speak up. We need to let them know how much we care about this issue, and that they need to stand up for us. They need to put our priorities first, the residents' priorities first. So the action alert and speaking out at the hearing for the moratoriums. All right, you can take down that share. And like I said, we'll stay here for more questions, but I really want to thank everybody. We're hitting just about the hour mark, so that's what you signed up for. I really want to thank everybody for attending, for actually having such strong, informed opinions about data centers, and that, and the power is in the people. We can really let our council members know what our priorities are and what they need to do.
I just wanted to remind, I keep seeing comments in the chat, that this video, the slide deck with clickable links will all be made available to you. The link to our the coalition's comments on the zoning text amendment and its amendments will also be made available to you. And I want to thank you again also. I see a hand up, and also Bishop, is he still there?
So, Bishop, yeah, did you want to, you have still, I'm going to go with you first. You can unmute. There we go.
I don't have a question as much as I have a brief comment, and that is, I would like us all to reject the idea that this is going to happen.
Right.
These data centers are all in service of AI, and AI is all in service of billionaires who are coming into our communities and going to have an adverse impact on our life, so that they can be even more wealthy. And I would like to stop these in their tracks. That may be unrealistic. I'm not inviting a big debate about it now. I'm just putting out a marker. Thanks.
So for those who don't know, can you unmute or mute yourself, Bishop? Yeah. Bishop Sheehan is a member of the MCA board. He's our legal advisor. And he is a noted attorney who we should take note of what he's just said here. And thank you for that, Bishop.
All right, Claire, I asked you to unmute.
Thank you. Double stomp on what Bishop just said. Thank you. My question is quick. I just wanted to clarify, if a moratorium were passed, it would pause everything with Dickerson that you talked about in the beginning, right? For example, the 2-year one, Dickerson would be paused for 2 years.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
While
Okay,
we get things over, thank you for that question.
all right, Linda, I see your hand. Hold on, you can unmute. No, okay, I'll try it again. Can you unmute?
Kevin, can't you unmute her?
I got it.
No,
Sorry.
there we go.
Okay. My question is, you keep saying this will be available. Where will it be available? Or since we signed up, will you be sending us that link?
We're sending it right to you, coming right to you in an email. Everything will come to you, okay?
Because I signed up.
Because you signed up.
Thank you. That's all I need to know.
Our
This
goal
was
is to send it to you before noon tomorrow, but
Right.
Thank you. It's been
Yep.
wonderful.
And share widely, please.
okay, Tom, you can unmute.
Thanks. I'd also like to just support what Bishop said. I think it's important. Optimism is a force multiplier, and we need to go for shutting this down. But my question is, so there's two moratorium bills, 6 months and 2 years. Is there a strategy that's being, what's your strategy in terms of that, in terms of the action item? And would it make sense to say we prefer 2 years, we'll accept 6 months? I just want to hear what you've been thinking about this. I haven't.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I'll let Kevin weigh in also. I would say 2 years, 6 months is too short. I don't know if 2 years is too long, but I would go for 2 years and see whether they ratchet it back from there. I mean, I talked to both Will Jawando's office and Evan Glass to tell them that the request for moratorium is very important. But even more important or equally important is what's going to happen in that period of time. What's the deliverables? What are we asking? What are we getting answers for? So I think if you have ideas, once you've thought about this, once you've seen what the coalition is flagged, then by all means say what you think should happen. What are the questions that are being answered during that period of time?
Yeah, I agree that 6 months is too short. There's a long list of questions that really need to be addressed. And I appreciate Glass coming forward with the first moratorium, but 6 months isn't long enough. So I think we should press for longer. And 2 years may be the right amount of time.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
So I just want to share that what we've heard is that the data center is threatening to withdraw if there's a moratorium. But so that right. So I see people applauding, right? But
They're not.
But the flip side is that obviously what the county wants is the tax revenue, and so they're afraid to put in a moratorium. But they've had I've heard conversations where they were threatening to withdraw if they didn't get specific tax incentives, which have now been denied to them, and yet they're still planning to go forward full force. So I think one could take those threats with a few grains of
large
salt.
grain of salt. A PS for the 84 people who stuck on this for a while. One thing we didn't say, which I feel reasonably comfortable saying, is that the end user in Dickerson is Amazon. So know that.
All right, I'm just going through the questions. Is what is the tax revenue?
So that number has bounced all over the place. One day it's 40 million, then it's up to 100, then it's down to 60. But when we talked about a cost benefit analysis, thus far, all that's been waved in the air has literally been an envelope with pen writing on it saying, look at all the money you're going to get from this, and we don't have any independent analysis of those that revenue. But I also, because I have to say you can't drink that revenue. We can't breathe the air from that revenue. So I just want to be clear that it has to be weighed against the cost to our health, to our natural resources, et cetera.
And Carolyn, let me just add, to do a credible independent cost benefit analysis is going to take some time, and that's why we need up to 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a comment from Lori McGilvery about many counties have proposed to put in place a 1-year moratorium. And so that wasn't a question, but I just want to put it in context. This is important because our neighboring counties, both Frederick and Prince George's counties, had moratoriums on data centers. So we're not asking for anything that is unusual. And it was, it worked for our maybe worked is not the right word, but it was used by our neighbors.
Any other questions?
There was a question about, I'm looking here, something about, has the Dickerson project already gotten the permissions needed from FERC?
So that's been a slippery issue.
And could you define FERC?
A Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, right? So that we've been told by Terra that they've gotten all the interconnection approvals. However, a former FERC employee indicates that he doubts whether or not they've actually been given the final green light on the amount of power consumption that they're going to use. So that's another one of those sort of question marks, transparency issues that we're trying to tease out.
Yeah,
All right,
Carolyn,
so
you made it very clear there's been a real burden of transparency in this whole process. They don't share, and they let things out a little bit at a time, but then they don't answer your questions very
Well,
regularly.
I wanted to express my frustration. The conversations with the property owner have been collegial, ostensibly, but I am frustrated that important aspects of conditions that they agreed that would be applied to this project are not materializing. Notably, they agreed when they got a conditional use approval to have a required condition that they would not use diesel generators. And now they have backed away from that and say that is precisely what they're using for their backup. So I have some real concerns with the transparency with that applicant. I'm sorry to say. I have some concerns with the transparency. I'm also sorry to say with our decision makers. I've specifically asked decision makers whether they've engaged in any non-disclosure agreements. Thus far, I have been told no, but it's also been very secretive. The end user, we weren't supposed to know who that is. And we found out who it was, but we didn't find out through our Public Information Act request, which was denied when we asked for documents relating to this project. So it's been disheartening, let's put it that way.
And oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, let me unmute you. Wait, Linda. I
Okay,
think you can.
got it. Okay, so so my question was I'm thinking that this river and many of the other rivers coming from Virginia and and Pennsylvania were all flowing into the Chesapeake Bay, and how much discussion is being done at the state level between the governors of these different states, and even how much is the Chesapeake Bay Coalition, or how much are they speaking up about this? Because it just seems like it's a really big umbrella that we're all under.
The answer to what you just said is yes, yes. The answer to what you have asked is I don't know whether the Chesapeake Bay, uh, watchdog groups or whatever have weighed in on this. I
Right.
think it underscores the speed with which this industry has moved forward without comprehensive
Right.
analysis, cumulative impact analysis, and certainly the questions about the Bay is a reasonable question that needs to be asked, evaluated, and answered. And I honestly don't believe that it has.
And also, how many alternatives are out there for not having data centers? I mean, we all are benefiting from the wonders of AI,
Are
but
we?
well, there are benefits, especially in the area of medical purposes. So, and that's not our situation here. We just want to make sure that there's collaboration, and so that's why I wanted to ask that question.
So I'm going to get philosophical for a minute here. When an industry is told that they have to operate under certain restrictions in terms of power use, water use, suddenly technology advances to be able to achieve those requirements.
Yeah.
If,
Okay.
on the other hand, an industry is given a door that is wide open without those requirements, there's really little motivation to advance technological improvements, geographical improvements as to where these would be located. One would ask, not that I want to visit upon the colder areas of the earth, data centers, but one would ask, we're putting them in some of the hottest areas of geography that require so
Yeah.
much cooling and water and power. Wouldn't a cumulative, look and comprehensive look as to where they should be, if they're going to be part of this? So, yeah, thank you for that question.
Yeah. So, looking at alternatives that was what I blinked on. I was trying to say that. Yeah.
So your question is, what are alternatives to the proliferation of data centers?
Yes.
Well, now I'm going to get really philosophical. I think we need to evaluate what this use, and I'm so sorry to get this, 30,000 feet up. What is this use? And when I'm talking about this use, I'm not talking about cloud storage. I'm not talking about the thing that lawmakers wave at us and say it's all about your phone. I'm talking about generative AI and whether or not the non-medical use of it or whatever to generate gorillas riding bicycles or whatever we're doing, whether or not humanity is benefiting from this use and the impacts of the industry. And I really think that we have to ask those hard questions and get the answers. And yeah.
Tom. Oh, wait, I have to ask you on mute. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. You should be able to unmute.
I agree with that. I think I think we need to think about AI, not just the data centers, because these are AI data centers. And what are the risks and benefits of AI, I think should be brought into the discussion. And I think the other thing to think about and realize and take heart in is the fact that the uh, the American population broadly hates data centers and AI, and that's growing. So we have that on our side, and I think we ought to use it. And that's a wide, that's widespread. It's bipartisan. It's Bernie Sanders and it's Steve Bannon. So it's really a horseshoe issue, and it's not just broken down into the usual partisan fighting.
Yes,
Agreed.
another example, I heard of a commencement speech at a University of Florida campus, and the woman was espousing the great advantages of AI technology. She got booed off the podium by the students who were graduating.
Yeah, that's right.
The same thing happened at Arizona with Schmidt, the Google billionaire, trying to tell the students how great AI was, and he got a bad reaction as well. I think the younger generation, youngest generation, people graduating from school and are having trouble getting jobs, are not pro AI by and large.
Yeah. Where are we, Kevin?
Okay, well, it's a 8:45. The people, if anybody else have any other questions, let me see.
I
Yeah.
think, Kevin, I would suggest that unless Caroline, you have a problem, we have a slide with your email addresses on them.
Yeah.
And if people want to, after we send out the notice with all the recording and whatever, if they have additional questions, is it okay if they come back to you?
I would very much appreciate hearing any other questions or comments people have. And also if people have questions about what they might testify, if they're going to come and testify. Somebody asked a question, are there going to be protests? I would recommend people coordinating some kind of noise making and visuals at the hearings on the 16th of June. I think, picking a color coming in, they take notice of that kind of thing. So it's something that can be discussed.
Yeah, and we'll certainly be reaching out about that hearing. We really appreciate everybody who seems really fired up, but we really need to direct that to the people in our government who are making these decisions.
Yeah, it was lonely in the hearing room back 2 years ago. I was the only one there on the Dickerson facility. So this feels better. This feels better.
All right. Well, again, thank you everybody for attending. Just to remind you one more time, we'll be sending out the recording and the slides, all the links you need to be active, and we'll be in touch as events move forward.
Thanks to all.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.
Happy holiday.